Hi there, friends, and welcome. I'm Daniel Donahue, and I am a German-American business trainer. And I've been doing it for about a quarter of a century in the meantime. Now, it goes without saying that in all that time, I've been able to figure out what works and what doesn't work in German-American business. And obviously, working with Germans is just different from working with Americans. Now, that's a no-brainer, and you've seen it yourself already. The question is, though, what does it take to succeed at work in a German company? And that's what this program is all about. To answer that question, I've included 15 easy-to-follow and proven tips. They are best practices. And if you choose to follow them, they will make your work with German colleagues and bosses a whole lot easier and quicker. The headaches will go away, and you will see it in your results immediately. You can count on that. But instead of me wasting your time explaining what the program is, why don't you just have a look for yourself? Now, I thank you very much for your interest, and I truly hope that you enjoy the program. Thank you. You know, there are a lot of very good reasons to work for a German company. For one, German companies offer unparalleled job security. Now, if job security is something that's important to you, then a German company is also the right place for you to be. Not only that, German companies believe in offering excellent training and development opportunities to their employees, and they're also known to offer their employees the chance to learn cutting-edge skills and a whole lot more. So German companies really are great places to work, but there are some real cultural differences that affect how Germans and Americans do business, and they can become serious challenges if you don't know what to look for. So this program has been designed to be your shortcut in understanding German expectations. It will give you some great ways to avoid the way too common German-American headaches at work. Now, why don't we have a look at 15 proven best practice tips? These are true game changers for Americans who work at German companies. You know, more than anything else, Germans need you to be a partner that they can count on. So, in your own communication style, don't exaggerate anything. Don't try to be tricky and don't beat around the bush. Just call it like you see it. That's always the best way to go with German partners. Remember, clarity always helps things work better, and ambiguity always causes paralysis. So when you work with Germans, tip number 1 is always say what you mean and do what you say. Next, remember that your German colleagues do not know for sure what you expect from them, just as you do not know for sure what they expect from you. However, most people do try to meet the expectations of those around them as soon as they understand what they are. For that reason, tip number 2 is always make your own expectations and your reasons for them crystal clear. Now, as a rule, Germans believe that written communication is more important than and superior to verbal communication. For that reason, in a very real way, if it's not in writing, it doesn't exist for Germans. Writing makes it real. So tip number 3 is put anything important into writing. As just mentioned, Germans place a very high value on the written word. Therefore, they prefer to write an email rather than to make a phone call or utilize some other form of communication. They will always read anything and everything you write, and they also expect the same courtesy from you. So tip number 4 is read the whole email or report, and don't ask any questions about it or them until you have. And finally, from the German point of view, an email is just as urgent as a phone call. So if you receive one, please don't hesitate to act on it quickly. Now, tip number 5 is use common courtesy and proper English in all of your written and verbal communications, which means say thank you and please or I apologize if necessary, but also say exactly what's on your mind. Make sure that you address email recipients with a hello or a hi and use their names. This is a really big deal for Germans. And also use a proper close. Regards or best wishes suffices for the close. Finally, avoid Americanisms, baseball or football analogies, slang, and local jargon. Now, tip number 6 is this. Instead of arguing the advantages of what you want to do, argue the disadvantages and the dangers of not doing it. It's just the other way around. Also, document all of your arguments in writing. If they're just spoken, they won't seem as credible to Germans as the written word does. And by the way, Germans and Americans often run into credibility issues because the primary motivational strategy in Germany is moving away, which means avoiding what you don't want, whereas in the United States it's moving to, which means going for what you do want. Now, this is a fundamental difference, and it causes problems everywhere it turns up. Guideline number 7 is always be completely transparent. For example, always give meeting participants all of the relevant information well before a meeting takes place. You know, Germans hate to be blindsided, especially during meetings. And by the way, demanding high transparency is just one of the most common components in high uncertainty avoidance cultures like you have in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. Now, since the USA has a 43% lower uncertainty avoidance level on average, we tend to place a much lower value on raw information. Basically, we wouldn't want to receive it from anyone else, so we really don't think about sharing it with anybody else. What would be the point of that? Well, trust me on this one. Your German partners want the information. Or better said, at least they want to have access to it. So whatever you have information-wise, just make sure that your German counterparts can get their hands on it too. That will help things a lot. Guideline number 8 is be prepared, always do your homework, especially before participating in meetings and other German-American events. Never try to fly by the seat of your pants, because if you do, you'll probably get caught. Germans have a very sharp eye for pretenders, and please do not try to use questions as a way to simulate real participation or real preparation. The difference is obvious. Really, it's just easier and smarter to be prepared. That's the best way to do your job, and that will get you the best results. Guideline 9 is utilize more milestones and a higher contact frequency. Now, your German partners will probably push back on this guideline because they would generally prefer to reduce the amount of contact. But you really must insist on this one. You see, one of the main cultural differences that causes Germans and Americans a never-ending supply of nasty headaches is time horizon. Now, essentially, time horizon is just a measurement of the present. In other words, how big is the present? Is it just this moment, or does it encompass a more extensive time period, or what is it? Well, in America, the time horizon in business runs from this moment to about 10 to 12 weeks into the future. It's roughly 1 quarter in length, and this is why all of our institutions in the United States operate on a quarterly basis. That's not a coincidence. Now, in Germany, the time horizon extends out to a few years into the future, and just about that far into the past, too. This critical difference affects everything we try to do together, especially in project work. Just think of the implications for forecasting, goal setting, and the level of detail contained in, or the reliability of planning and a host of other important issues. It's a really big deal. Now, just so you know, it's virtually impossible for either the Germans or the Americans to significantly alter our time horizon imprint. We got that growing up, and we got what we got. It's not going to change. But we can manage it very effectively by utilizing milestones, more of them, and a higher contact frequency. In fact, if we're smart about it, this one guideline could empower us to take advantage of both predictability and efficiency in German planning and the quick reaction times and agility of the American can-do approach. It's real synergy, and it's a real powerful combination if you get it right. Guideline number 10 is avoid last-minute changes if possible. Germans tend to view last-minute changes as threatening and certainly as inefficient. Obviously, there are times when changes cannot be avoided. That's life and that's business. We've all just got to deal with that. But there are also times when the changes can be avoided. If a last-minute change can be avoided, then avoid it, and you will be happy that you did, because in the long run, it will definitely help you improve your credibility with your German counterparts. Guideline 11 is start on time, finish on time. Generally, try to plan your time requirements realistically, because time miscalculations are a great source of uncertainty and frustration for everyone in business. So always do your best to avoid being either overly optimistic or too heavily buffered in your time planning. Also, remember that Germans tend to plan their days from starting time to quitting time, and they often plan every minute in between. So when you call unexpectedly, for example, to bounce an idea off someone, well, probably all you're going to get done is to throw their time schedule out of whack. See, I doubt if you'll get an answer, because they can't really give you one unless they know for certain that it's exactly the right answer. So you just as well give them a heads up and a little time to prepare for your call. Remember, when it comes to time, Germans don't bounce. Guideline 12 is treat forecasts and goals as commitments. Germans do that, and they expect the same from you. In fact, let's go one step further and still keep it simple. Just treat anything and everything you say to a German counterpart as a commitment. Now, that's the best way I know of to avoid hyperbole and the overstatements that can easily lead to misunderstandings and unnecessary confusion down the line. It's just a good tip when you work with Germans. Guideline number 13 is promise a little less and deliver a little more. You know, Germans desire precision in everything they do, and this is an outstanding core value, and they're very good at it too. But it can lead to a serious issue when they work with Americans. Now, the issue is that they practically always plan things as if they were really going to work exactly as planned, which we all know is rather unlikely in the United States. And this means that Germans too rarely include sufficient buffers to handle the unexpected things that could go wrong at any moment, anytime, anywhere. So the buffers will have to come from your side. When you receive a German delivery date, please don't pass it on one-to-one to an American customer. You've got to buffer it up a little first, because the likelihood that your German partners will miss this date is just too high, and as you know, that's a very big deal in United States business. However, your buffers have to be kept at a level which is sufficient to handle the risk contingencies, but still small enough to be seen as prudent. And buffers cannot result in too high a charge against efficiency. That would definitely be a non-starter. For this reason, I suggest that you just promise a little less and deliver a little more. And remember this, if you exceed your forecast or your commitment by too much, you will not be praised for achieving an excellent outcome. Instead, you will be criticized for your flawed planning and forecasting skills. Take me seriously on this. That's exactly what will happen. So, take your buffers. You will need them, but keep them as tight as is feasible. Guideline number 14 is Americans must determine the urgency in situations involving American partners, especially customers and suppliers. Now, the time horizon difference that we spoke about earlier drastically affects people's sense of urgency. Basically, the shorter your time horizon is, the longer an individual increment of time feels to you. And the longer your time horizon is, obviously, the shorter that same increment feels to you. So you can think about it this way. 1 week is about 1/10 to 1/12 of the average American time horizon. But it's only 1/300th of the average German time horizon. That's a big difference. And for the same reason that a week feels like an eternity to a child, but is pretty much nothing to an adult, in German American business, a week feels a whole lot longer to an American customer or supplier than it ever would to a German. Now, as you can imagine, this has the potential to impact things like customer service, delivery schedules, making last-minute changes, and so on, in a very serious and possibly negative way. And it always plays a role. And that's why in questions of urgency in America, especially when American customers or suppliers are involved, or the state for that matter, it has to be a credible American on your team who determines the proper urgency level. Unfortunately, it's practically impossible for a German to get this one right. So, guideline number 15 is give your German partners the benefit of the doubt, and remember that it's nothing personal. You know, many misunderstandings come from misuse of the English language, and many more come from cultural differences, some of which we've already spoken about. And just so you know, you can always safely assume that you are in a very good standing in your company, because if you weren't, you would definitely know about it. In Germany, they say, nicht geschimpft ist genug gelobt. This expression means if you're not being criticized, you can take it as a compliment. That also means if you're doing anything wrong, no matter what it is or how small it is, you're going to hear about it, and quickly. Now, if you feel that the communication has been too harsh or critical, it's important to remember that absolutely no disrespect was intended by it. No disrespect at all, not in any way. I can guarantee you that. If a German counterpart says or does something that you don't like, it does not mean the same thing as it would if it had been said or done by an American. It's not the same thing. It's nothing personal. So please don't treat it like it is. It's far better to just give your German colleagues the benefit of the doubt. You'll be right most of the time. However, if someone really steps across the line on you, you also need to let them know that it's not okay. Always make your own expectations crystal clear, and they will be honored. So this concludes the program. I thank you very much for listening, and I truly hope that you have enjoyed it and could take away some useful tips for working effectively in a German-American business environment. I sincerely appreciate your interest and your support, and I hope that our paths will cross somewhere down the line. Thanks again very much.